1 second. Okay. Hi, everybody. We're back. This is part 2. We're back at the Great Abyss. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. So I utilize the Great Abyss to convey the fundamental ground, what some people would call consciousness, as you and I have discussed just a moment ago. You could also label this as ether, as energy, but nonetheless, it points to the fundamental ground of existence. Everything else is emergent effectively from that. And then Lilith plays the part of the personification, the representation of that great abyss of consciousness, in the same way that across most philosophies, across most religions, the deity is a represented form, it's a represented name and form that ultimately points to the transcendent that is beyond name, beyond form, beyond language, beyond intellect, which would be that fundamental ground.
So you think the best personality to represent consciousness as a whole is Lilith? Lilith as people know Lilith to be, or what do you? Yes.
Yes.
So can you explain to me a little bit about Lilith, and because I don't know a lot about her.
Sure.
Yeah, can you teach to me about Lilith? I don't know anything about her.
Sure. Depending on kind of there's various branches of her mythology. There are some branches of her mythology that says that she was originally created as Adam was created, as everything else was created in Genesis. And then at some point there was a misunderstanding, a disagreement. Lilith ultimately didn't want to subject herself, be submissive to Adam. So she left. And then in that process, there are even further mythologies that say that Lilith then became the primary deity, the primary goddess of a succubus, incubus, succubi, incubi type of race and mythology and these types of things. There are some mythologies that consider her a wind elemental, or a wind demon, or a wind demoness. And again, we go back into this succubi, incubi type of process. Purposefully staying away from the mythologies, because there are so many different flavors, there's so many different branches about how Lilith has come about. But I do want to focus on some of the core similarities across those mythologies. And one of the core similarities across her mythologies is transgression, is to not simply bow for the sake of bowing, not to be submissive for the purpose of being submissive. And this falls for men, this falls for women, this falls for really anybody. So I want to appreciate Lilith as a representation of not only her femininity, but also a representation as the dark feminine divine, to draw kind of a connection with the Eastern processes. We see something similar with the goddess Kali. She has a very terrible, wrathful form, and a lot of her symbolism is largely misunderstood, and it kind of pushes people away. Similarly, I think Lilith is largely misunderstood, and some of her symbolism and things aren't fully appreciated. So I personally utilize the name and form of Lilith as personification of consciousness, as a personification of the great abyss. That is where my deity, for lack of a better way to say it, is. I have that appreciation, which has been influenced from my background in Hinduism and background in Vedanta.
Okay. So I so I'm trying to think of how to bring this in. So I know about the gods, like the Greek gods and all of that mythology.
Mhm.
So I like Artemis, for instance. I resonate with
Okay.
Artemis. And she was anti-hierarchy. She didn't want to submit and do her godly jobs. You know, she was like Lilith. So do you think that maybe Lilith was that same frequency or that same Artemis
Yes.
energy just later on in the timeline?
Yes, I would say it's a similar type of vibe, a similar type of energy. Just it's a cultural variation. The recipe is a little bit different. The variant is a little bit different, but it has a similar reference point. It's trying to convey that non-submission, to be your own individual, to do your own thing, and not just do things because people tell you to do things.
It's almost a mindset.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Um,
Like
and
maybe when
with
you like cognitively recognize something, that's when your mindset changes or your perspective changes. Would you agree with that?
completely, 100%. Yeah.
All right, interesting.
Um, so one thing that I break down in the materials that I've written, um, and also actually working now on a future setup for course material, is one of the main tools that's used through this process is transgression itself. Utilizing transgression, utilizing taboos, utilizing things that would otherwise shake you emotionally or maybe shake you psychologically, utilizing those things as tools to kind of get you out of your rigid thinking, to get you out of just your robotic day-to-day living, your robotic day-to-day thinking and living and things. To be clear, though, to use transgression as a tool, there has to be a function of intention to do so and clarity within why you're doing it contextually. And then ultimately, it has to break you of rigid thinking. It has to break you of rigidity and identity and rigidity in how you perceive the world.
Like dogma,
That
basically.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. And anything that is kind of dogmatic to you, whether that be in a philosophical, religious sense, or even just in a day-to-day sense that, it has to be this way. It has to be this way. It doesn't have to be that way. You're choosing to be beholden to it being that way.
Right.
And the real distinction that I would like to make here is that when there is intent, when there is contextual understanding, and when there is a education, a softening of one's identity, this is deliberate transgression. This is not just being, hedonistic and chaotic just for the purpose of being hedonistic and chaotic. There is a purpose and there is an intent of doing so.
You have been saying a word that I'm not sure that I'm going to pronounce correctly. It's Vertata.
Vedanta.
Vertata.
Vedanta.
Vedanta. Vedanta. Yes. Can you explain to
Yeah.
me what that is? It has something to do with Hinduism, right? You said
Essentially.
you went to India too. You said you went to India. Can you tell me about your time in India? What that was like?
Definitely. Okay. So we have to rewind a little bit on a personal clock. I was originally introduced to the concepts of non-duality and inquiry, contemplation of this nature about 20 years ago. When I was in my mid-20s at the time, I was turning 26, going on 27 actually, is when I received my initial diksha or initiation from one of my teachers. This has been an ongoing process for me for 20 plus years at this point. To answer to your question about defining Vedanta, I'm going to put a qualifier to this as Advaita Vedanta or non-dual Vedanta. And I say this because there are other types of Vedanta. For want of a better way to say it, there are other flavors of Vedanta.
I use that too. That works.
Yeah.
Flavor, it works. Describe
Yeah. Different aromas, different flavors,
Yeah.
however you wish to throw it out there.
Yeah.
So the word Vedanta, Vedanta, Ved Anta, So the word breaks into its root word and then its suffix. So you have ved or veda, which means knowledge, and anta, which is end of, accumulation of, at the end of the material. Okay. So in a general understanding for the Hindu setup, when it comes to their holy scriptures, when it comes to the Vedas, or really just Veda, collectively as one, in the beginning of it, you have what is known as karma kanda, which is all of your day-to-day structures of how to run society, how to run culture, the processes of doing your worship. There's information within the karma kanda as far as architecture, science, medicine, agricultural, architectural. That's all your day-to-day living type of processes. In the second half, which again now is the end of, or the anta, the accumulation of, or the end of, at the second half, at the end of the karma kanda, comes what is known as jnana kanda, or knowledge. So this is philosophical knowledge, this is intellectual knowledge, and this is scripturally, this is represented in the texts that are known as the Upanishads. There are numerous Upanishads that will glorify or venerate male deity, female deity, and in some cases, no deity at all. But the Upanishads themselves are the core intellectual and philosophical basis for what is collectively known as Vedanta. So Vedanta, then, to come back around to it, is that knowledge or that understanding that comes at the end of the previous understanding, the previous karma kanda texts. So that's one way to view the word Vedanta. It is also that knowledge or that understanding that ends one's ignorance, that eliminates one's ignorance. So it's that right understanding that dispels one's ignorance. When you asked a moment ago as to what it was, I had said that there are several flavors of Vedanta. There are several, several flavors of Vedanta. I would almost say denomination, but that's maybe not quite the right word. So the word Advaita means not two. So it is the non-dual, not two, understanding, knowledge that ends one's ignorance, about who they are, what they are, and the fundamental ground of consciousness.
Okay. So it's knowledge, basically. It's a study of knowledge, and that when you study this knowledge, you will lose your ignorance, as they say.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And it's a Hinduism. It's a Hindu practice. Would you say? Is it a type of practice?
For day-to-day processes, it is kind of the underlying philosophy that then it's the underlying philosophy, or I would even say esoteric understanding, that then the exoteric religion of philosophy then kind of blossoms out from that.
Okay.
So it's the philosophical ground for Hinduism in a lot of ways.
Can anybody enter into this? Is this for anybody?
Yes, 1,000%. 1,000%.
If somebody wanted to learn more about this, or they wanted to incorporate this into their life, how would they go about doing that?
There are a couple of 3 primary organizations that I've heard of and have followed various teachers' texts over the years. The one organization that's based here in the United States is called the Vedanta Society. They have centers throughout the US, they have centers in other countries, and their primary centers come directly from India. The other one that I would probably mention for people, or 2 actually, is the Chinmay Mission. Also, they teach traditional Vedanta, traditional non-dualism. And I would also mention the Dayananda organization, or the Dayananda ashram. That particular organization is where I spent a lot of my time. I had a 3-year residential process while I was in India. Collectively, I've been to India and have studied with different teachers. I've been to India now 5 times, actually. This last time was in 2022, so a few years ago, and I was primarily down in South India and Calcutta for about 6 months, 7 months.
What's it like when you stay there? What are the accommodations like? Or do you stay at like a temple? Are you like a guest
Sure.
in their temple? Is that
So I was there for a long-term course. I was part of the 2013 batch, is what they would say. And when you're
and it was
there
in the year 2013?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a 3-year program. That was a unique situation. It was done in northern India in an area that's called Rishikesh. And they do other long-term 3-year and longer courses in South India. But when you are directly part of one of these courses, you are there as a student. You reside in the monastery, in the ashram itself.
Monastery.
You
Okay.
you fully participate in their regimen, their schedule, waking up roughly 5 o'clock in the morning. You go to temple early, first thing in the morning. And then your classes throughout the day are intellectual and philosophical classes that are based on these Vedantic or Upanishadic texts that I kind of made reference to a moment ago. And then you have other teachers that come in and they teach you Vedic chanting, they teach you yoga, they teach you Sanskrit language. And this is all done kind of on a rolling 6-day process. At least it was for our class. So from the point that you wake up and pretty much until the point that you retire for sleep, it's Sanskrit, yoga, meditation, intellectual and philosophical discourse and debate, rinse, repeat for 6 days. You have 1 day to kind of relax, go through your notes, prepare for the next coming round of, 6 or 7 days or whatever it may be.
So you had to pay for this? Was this something you had to pay for?
I was kind of in a unique situation. I did not directly pay for this course. So under normal circumstances, you would go to these organizations, you would take application with them. They would review your application, just like any job, to see if you're going to be, a good fit for this material.
You would go in person. You'd have to go in person. No,
no, it's all done through mail. Yep.
Oh, mail. Okay.
Yeah, like a paper application type of thing.
So
now this was several years ago.
Okay, it might have changed since then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but generally it's still the same. Now the methodology, whether it's a paper mail or email or something, the methodology of delivery may have changed, but it's still nonetheless, you are going to fill out an application that gives the management and the teachers there an understanding of what your knowledge base is, what your background is, how easily it is that you will be able to digest this knowledge and information, and more importantly, within the community, are you going to be a fit, or are you going to possibly be an issue later, just as someone would evaluate you for a job. And I say that my situation is unique because 1, I did not take application, and 2, I literally showed up at 10 o'clock at night in the pouring rain, knocking on the door. My situation was unique in that, not to say that I'm unique in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that the experience and the situation is unique because I didn't take formal application or anything. When I went there to the facility, it was raining. I speak to the guard. The guard ultimately wakes up the office manager. I have some words in English. My Hindi was not so great at the time. It's still kind of broken as it is. I can get by if I go to the market. But the office managers, basically is like, hey, who are you? Why are you here? What's going on? And I told them that I heard that there was a formal course for Vedanta and Sanskrit that was occurring. And I wanted to speak to the main teacher, the Acharya, to see if I could participate in the course. At the time, the manager indicated to me the main teacher, the Acharya, is out on lecture tour. He will be back in a few days. Until he gets back, I'll give you, a room for a couple of days. You can talk with him. Based on what he decides, he will either let you stay or you will have to leave. So a few days later, I think it was about 4 or 5 days later, the main teacher shows up, and I was a little nervous, but I approached him towards the end of our dining time and said, hey, this is who I am. This is what I would like to talk about. And he says, okay, fine. After evening meal, come to my room and we'll have a discussion, about what this is and who you are and what's going on. So I did that. We had probably about an hour and a half, almost 2-hour conversation. And I had given him my philosophical, spiritual background, teachers that I'd studied with, texts that I'd studied, things of this nature. He kind of did his and ha and digested, things that I was saying. And ultimately he approved and allowed me to join the course. So I say my situation is unique because I didn't go through a formal process of application. I spoke directly to the teacher who was presiding over these classes in a one-on-one situation. And he ultimately decided that I would be allowed or could otherwise join the course. And then I continued my time in that course in North India for the next 3 years.
So would it normally have cost money? Would it normally, like if somebody wanted to fill out, or is it based on the application, they accept you and it doesn't cost any money?
It is done generally what they would say by a donation process. So I would assume that there is some fee, some sort of process involved. At a minimum, individual has to be able to take care of their own basic needs when it comes to their hygiene and their, personal cleaning products and toothbrush, toothpaste, soap. Can you get along? Can you get by without stressing or otherwise being a burden to the facility?
Okay. We're rounding up to an hour here.
Yeah.
My cat has joined us.
Yeah, I've heard the meows in the background.
Can you hear them? I was worried about that. That's a different cat. Actually,
just occasionally.
meows. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I heard
They're
you
fur
say
babies.
a few things. I heard you say a few things I just want to touch on before we end this.
Yeah.
You said that you're not unique in any way.
No.
And so, and you said Lilith was, basically not bowing to not being subordinate as she needs to be. So I would say that you're somebody who doesn't believe in labels.
Definitely not.
Doesn't believe
they have
in
their transactional use.
So you don't believe in the patriarchal hierarchy?
Not particularly, no.
Okay. Would you say that you're non-judgmental? That you don't judge others because you understand that they're just different than you?
It's a difference in kind, it's a difference in degree, not a difference in essence. I really try to not, as you say, not be judgmental. I really try to understand the person where they are with what they're presenting to me. And I try as best as I can, and I know we all do this. We all have certain layers of judgment that we prejudge the situation. And this is kind of a natural survival mechanism. Are you friend? Are you foe? That kind of thing.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
in a very, primal,
yeah.
tribal, I want to survive, I want to exist type of level. Knowing that, I try as best I can to kind of put that aside and meet that person where they are with what they're presenting.
Okay. All right. I would say I resonate with that. That's kind of how I am. I believe that we're all different from one another. Nobody's better than anybody. I mean, obviously I'm immersed in that environment, so I have to play along to a certain degree, but I would agree with you. I resonate with that. So I'm gonna end this here. So thank you so much for being here and talking to me about this.
Thank you, Lindsay.
You got to meet my cat.
Yeah.
She doesn't often come on camera. This is a rare thing for her. She's right here off the screen, actually, putting her nose on my finger. Okay, I'm going to end this here. So thank you all for being here.